Update. Am I the bad guy for threatening my wife with a divorce after she quit her job to be a trad wife? Advice needed. First of all, I want to thank you guys for the overwhelming support I have received. I've received a ton of messages, but please be patient with me. This week has been tough on me. This whole family drama has taken a toll on me physically and mentally. I want to add a few crucial details I missed mentioning in my original post. I suffer from a genetic heart condition that puts me at risk of stress-induced cardiac arrest. I used to work full-time but was forced to cut down on my work after suffering a silent heart attack. This was nearly a decade ago, but since then I've worked on my own physical and mental well-being. Some people didn't understand me constantly mentioning why it was such an issue working the extra 20%. I honestly don't know how much time I have left, and my kids are the most important things in my life. For my mental health, I must get to spend time with my kids throughout the week. Besides my wife and kids, I have nothing. I hate my job and purely continue for the sake of my kids and wife. Well, after spending a day at my parents' house, eventually I felt enough time had passed for me to gather my thoughts on everything. What she did seemed like the ultimate slap in the face, but I went back to resolve this and didn't want to escalate this nightmare. My wife seemed happy I returned, but wasn't apologetic at all. The kids, especially my son, were ecstatic. That sort of made me ignore the lack of remorse for the time being. That same night, after putting my kids to bed, I told her we needed to have a serious discussion. I told her how I felt about everything she did. The fact that she knows about my health condition and still went through with it. The fact that I set clear boundaries and she still chose to quit her job without my consent. How the fact that she told my son that I was going to abandon the family felt like a stab in the back. How throughout all of this, she didn't even seem remorseful once. The fact that she chose her happiness to the detriment of mine. The fact I sacrificed so much for the family and I got repaid like this. The fact that we now as a family have to make major lifestyle changes since a third of our family income vanished. For a split second, I saw an ounce of sadness in her eyes before she went right back to being annoyed with me. I then simply told her to lay out her half of the story. Here is a summary of what she said. She felt ignored by me, constantly rejecting her proposal. She had worked long enough, and this was finally the time for her to enjoy her life as a true wife. She also said that I was being a baby about the whole spending extra time with the kids thing. That pissed me off, and we ended up getting into a heated argument. I couldn't bear any of it anymore and just ended up sleeping in the guest room. Until yesterday, nothing changed. She constantly tried to play everything off and wanted to embrace her new role by constantly trying to be intimate with me and by making me my favorite dishes. It just felt like she was trying to manipulate me again. I wasn't having any of it. I just kept on sleeping in the guest room. Well, my birthday was yesterday, and after work my wife and kids picked me up and we ate dinner together. This was probably the first time I genuinely had a smile on my face in a week. Well, that smile vanished because she tried to seduce me again later that night. I rejected her, and to my surprise, she had a full-on mental breakdown. I just held her as she started apologizing for what she did. She claimed she didn't understand how much she hurt me. She was sorry for making me feel like an afterthought, etc. We ended up sleeping in the same bed yesterday. I felt like things were finally moving in the right direction, and I again asked her about searching for a new job today. Instead of getting mad, she just replied with an, "I need to think about it." Yeah, that's where things are as of today. It feels like progress is being made, but this just might be another manipulation tactic of hers. I'll probably make a final update in a month or so. Reddit isn't doing my mental health any favors. How would you guys move forward in this situation? Could I have done something better? Is she being genuine? And to those incels who constantly bring up Islam as a way to justify her behavior, please shut up. Final update. Aita for threatening my wife with a divorce after she quit her job to be a trad wife. Again, I'm beyond grateful for all the love and support you guys have shown me. If I'm being honest with everyone, I've been drinking a lot to get through this mess. I felt like a zombie just wandering around with no purpose. My wife's actions completely broke me. Thankfully, I've managed to cut most of it out over the past week, and that's mostly thanks to Reddit. You guys seriously helped me keep my mind busy with something else besides alcohol. Being reminded that have two smaller versions of myself, looking up to me and learning from the things I do, really helped me snap out of it. I've been at my lowest since making my first post, and I think I've just hit a new low. Until last week, nothing changed since my last post. My wife still pranced around enjoying her new lifestyle while I suffered in silence. After posting my update, I did realize that my wife 100% was trying to manipulate me into submitting to her demands. I asked her if she started looking for a job, and she hesitated and told me no and that she needed more time. If I'm being honest, that's all I needed to know from her. I tried making this work, but honest to God, I couldn't keep living like that. Every day that passed felt like a part of my soul vanished. My wife kept on trying to please me, but it didn't seem genuine at all. I've also started noticing her getting lazy and starting to neglect my kids. My wife stopped cooking, and after working 9 hours of hell, I now am the one who is helping my son with his homework and the one to play Barbie with my daughter. I'm not complaining about spending time with my kids, but I could seriously see this becoming worse as time goes on. I don't know where the woman I once fell in love with went, but that thing that lives with me wasn't her. I know a lot of you are going to smile hearing this, but I did tell my wife that I want a divorce last week. I came home from work and I saw my wife sitting on the couch watching TV while my daughter was crying in her room. I just snapped at that moment. I told them we needed to have a serious discussion after the kids went to sleep. After I put my kids to sleep, I sat down with her and told her our marriage was over and that I'll be contacting my lawyer tomorrow. Divorce was never something I ever planned on doing in my life, but I just felt like something needed to change or my kids would be visiting my gravesite in a few years. Our culture frowns upon it, and I knew I was about to get serious backlash for it, but at this point, I couldn't care less. I don't know why, but she thought I was joking and started laughing. I told her I was being serious this time, and her manipulation methods weren't going to work on me anymore, and her face just went pale. She then went from screaming at me to crying to blaming me for every issue in the family to begging for another chance. She went to get her laptop and tried to apply for jobs on Indeed while begging. I just told her to cut it out and told her I tried my best, but she just kept giving me empty promises. I told her the following. I know her trying to be intimate with me just was a manipulation tactic and not to show her devotion to me, as she puts it. If she was truly sorry, why didn't she start applying for jobs immediately instead of waiting until I confronted her? Her completely disregarding any of my feelings and needs while purely perusing her own shows me how selfish she is. She knows about my health and still chose to completely mess me over. And now this part pissed me off a lot. Her poisoning my son against me when this all started was beyond messed up, and looking back was enough of a reason to divorce her. We ended up fighting for another hour or so, and her constant screaming ended up waking up our daughter, and that's when I told my wife to shut up and go to bed. The following day, my mom called me during work and asked if I lost my mind or something. My wife told my mom that I was going to divorce her. She claimed that I was bringing serious shame onto the family, and she didn't raise me to abandon my kids. Yep, my wife told my mom that I was planning on abandoning my kids and has been feeding my kids the same BS. I explained to my mom the reasons why I wanted divorce, but she won't budge. If I divorce my wife, I'm a disgrace of a man and my mom wants nothing to do with me. I know my mom well enough to tell that her words are just empty threats, but what hurts me most are the reactions of my kids. My son won't look me in the eyes and won't even let me anywhere near his room. My daughter just tries to hit me whenever I try to talk to her. I've tried explaining to them that I'm not going to give up on them, and me and their mom are just going to separate, but they just seem to believe whatever BS my wife tells them. Friends and in-laws also claim that I'm a monster for making my wife go through this. My wife was served with divorce papers 2 days ago and has been crying nonstop since. My wife told my kids about the divorce papers and they both claim that they will never talk to me again, and in my son's words, I'm a bad husband and father. I cried myself to sleep that night. I thought divorce would bring me peace, but it only brought me one step closer to taking my life. As I stated in my previous post, I have nothing and am nothing without my kids. Growing up dead poor as a refugee in Germany, I promised myself that I would give my kids a life that I could have only dreamed of, but I feel like I failed. I'm sorry for making this post longer than it has to be. Again, I just want to thank everyone for the love and support, but this will probably be my last post. Wishing you all a lovely week.